In this video, I'm going to show you how to use curve modifiers and a little bit of the NLA. I'm Luciano, and welcome to the adventures of LollypopMan. Welcome back, everyone. In today's video, I've had a big problem trying to name it because I wanted to show you something really cool in the NLA, but I couldn't do that without showing you the curve modifiers because the NLA is kind of like a layer sort of monster. And the particular feature I wanted to show you is in the NLA. It's directly related to the modifiers. And we haven't talked about the modifiers yet, so let's talk about them now. Before we get there, subscribe because that helps out the channel a lot. I know I haven't been posting as often as usual. You know, I moved from one country to another. I did quarantine. I've been working like crazy on side projects, and now I'm starting my new job. For now, in the comments below, do your request. I'm always looking for more ideas. Sometimes I struggle in that sense. Sometimes I struggle with time because the ideas are too big to make in one video, but I'm always open for more and for help. And if you have any other things that you'd like to know about the animation process, about the animation tools, about a particular thing that you saw or that you used in another software and you want to learn how to use it here, make sure you let me know in the comments, because as you can see, I don't think I failed to respond to any single comment, and I'll always try to answer everything to the best that I can. So without further ado, let's get on it. This episode is sponsored by me. Use the code below to get 10% discount on any of my products. So we have this character here. This character belongs to iAnimate. As you may know, I'll be teaching a class. This class is either for professionals wanting to migrate to Blender and learning all the tools and all the little quirks and all of the problems and everything that they may want to know coming from another software like Maya, or for somebody that wants to get started learning animation and wants to do it in Blender right away. And so this is one of the characters that we might be using in the class. It's partially rigged, still not done. So as I was saying, I was doing this test animation, which is like a run cycle, like jogging cycle. In this case, this guy is kind of like running in the beach kind of thing, you know? So why do we want to use curve modifiers, and what are they? Curve modifiers are modifiers, kind of like the ones that you find for the objects, like a cube, right? It takes the base object as an input, and then after you put a modifier, then you get something in return, like something more spherical. So if I add a modifier to the cube, you'll just add a subsurface, for instance. And if I turn off simplify, obviously, you can see now I get something more like a cube, like a sphere. And the more I add modifier, the more a sphere looks like, right? Because that's creating subdivisions and making it smoother. And so this same concept also works for curves in Blender. And you can go to any curve and create some stuff for them. So for instance, I'm going to show my controllers and then select the torso. And if I go into the Z-axis in torso, it's a little bit messy. You can see that if I select one of the curves, I need to make it active, and to make it active, one of the keyframes has to be selected. So you click on any of the keyframes of the curve, and then you get this little panel right here that says modifiers. So I'll go to the modifiers, and I'm just gonna skip to the ones that I know. So I know this one, which is noise, which is great. For instance, if you're doing like a camera shake or like a handheld camera, you just add a noise. And then even if you modify, you can see that you move the keyframes. By default, it's in a mode where it's actually useful, where it will supposed to be replacing, but I would say it's either multiplying or combining or something like that, because it kind of adds to the curve that I give it. And so it gives me that if you can see it, that if I turn it off, you can see like this is my original curve, and then with this on top, it gives me this kind of nice result, which is my animation plus the noise, right? And again, you can scale it, you can give it more or less strength, And so let's go back, and undo 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 and undo. Okay, so we got back to our animation where it was before. I'm going to delete this. And again, we were presented with this problem of we want to make this guy be cycled, right? So what you do is you select the curve, or at least one of the keyframes, make sure that one of them is active at least, go to add modifier and go to the cycle one. The cycle one will do exactly that. Cycle forward, repeat motion, cycle backwards. And you can actually even limit this if you want. You can cycle forward like one time and backwards one time, and that's it. You can just go no cycle backwards and it does it only forwards. And so we're confronted with this thing, which is we just added a modifier to one curve. So let's try to add it to several curves. You'd go here and you go, wait, okay, so I want this curve. So I can copy and select all of the other ones and press paste. So we're confronted with this issue that, yeah, you can add it to one and then you can select them all, they all have it. But then if I want to modify this one, then all of them don't get modified. They're all on their own. So you end up having to go to a way to delete them. And so that's go Shift E, and you need to clear cyclic modifiers. You need to Shift E, make one to create it, modify it, and then copy that one, select all your curves besides that one, and then make sure that one of them has an active keyframe, paste it, and there you go. Something that more or less works, right? Now, you're creating modifiers per curve, which is great. So let's stick to this. So what I would do here is I would go here, select all of them, press Shift E, and make cyclic modifier. And there you go. You got your character cycled 2 times. But with the new technique that I'm going to explain to you, this might not even be necessary to do this way. Now, it's important to know this because you can still like do on a per curve basis and stuff like that. So having modifiers on curves is really cool because it allows you to do specific things and to add specific things without messing up your curves. So another kind of cool thing is that, for instance, let's say I want to animate this character like he was Spider-Man and do it on 2s, right? What you normally do is you'd go pose, animation, bake action, do not only the selected bones, bake on 2s, go to from frame 1 to 10, 24, right? And then you just bake it. And now as a result, you'll just get every single controller, every 2 frames. And now the only step that you're missing is pressing constant. So when you do that, you get as a result an animation that works on 2s. In fact, if I now press this and Shift D and make cyclic, then you need to do it on the graph editor because for some reason it shows you the menu, but it just doesn't do it, right? Shift E, make cyclic. Now we get a cycle. And so there you go. So you cycle your animation and it's also on 2s. Great. Fantastic. Now, you may have not known any of this until this point, but I'm going to show you something even better. So let's go back to our animation, right? The problem with this method is that because you're baking keyframes and you're getting it on 2s, you really then have keyframes every 2 frames. And sometimes you want to have keyframes every 2 frames. Sometimes you want to have keyframes every 1 frame, but also you want a lot of the times to have keyframes more sparse, maybe like a controller that just goes up and down. You just need like the extremes and then use your tangents, and with that you can control it without having 18 keyframes or 24 keyframes, only having just the top and bottom, right? So this is what we'll do. We'll understand a little bit about the NLA. And so if I go here, I'm going to create a new animation panel, doesn't matter. And I'm going to change this panel to NLA. So you can see that here my keyframes are represented in this little kind of timeline thing, right? And there's this little button that's kind of calling you to press it. So let's do that. Let's press it. And so what you see is that my keyframes disappear from my graph editor. My dope sheet is empty now. My action editor, everything is out. Because what we just did is we created a clip. So now all this animation that we had here, it still exists in that clip. And the only way I can edit it now is if I select that clip and press tab, hovering the NLA. As you can see, now that I press tab, I can select my controllers and I can see my keyframes. Now, you may be wondering, why do I even want to do this? Well, this has a few things that are interesting. For instance, if I press N, I can have this N panel, right? And go to the strip and go to the action clip. You can see that if I want to cycle my strip, I can just go here to where it says repeat. And then you can see that as I make this value larger, then it starts repeating. And it even gives me this little line that's indicating where my actual animation finishes and where the next cycle starts. So now I get two beautiful loops, right? One of the things about this is that you're not using modifiers, so it's actually kind of easier to handle. On top of this, let's say we want to make it on twos again. So I can go to my modifiers, because yes, clips have modifiers. You can add a modifier and you can add the stepped interpolation one. So now that I turn it on, you can see that my character has a stepped interpolation, which is on twos by default. And then on top of that is cycling. And I can go back to edit mode and go, all right, this is my original animation. I can still tweak my curves the same way I was tweaking them before, right? I can just like grab one of them, like my torso location Z, right? And I can keep polishing this animation till I die. And I don't need to bake it. I don't need to get myself full of keyframes. I can just work on it cleanly with the minimum amount of keyframes possible. And then if I play, I still get animation on twos. So the only downside of this is that you don't see the stepped previewed in the curve. Like if I now select this curve and add a modifier, a stepped interpolation one, you can see what it's actually exactly doing instead of kind of guessing. But I think this is kind of like a good compromise, like you choose what you want. Now, let's say you're in this case, and then now you do want to do this, but you want your character to start walking, and you're gonna go like, okay, let's do this. And you're going to press keyframe here, and you wanna go here, right? And you go, all right, so I got my character and I want it to go linear, and well, you got a problem. And so that's when it gets more complex, but still there's solutions. So you can see that here we have two problems, because this controller has a different length than the rest of the animation. So this is our cycle, right? And then this controller has a different length. Then when the NLA is cycling, it's considering this entire animation. So what we want to do is we're going to split them up. So I'm going to go to the first keyframe and I'm going to Control C these keyframes and I'm going to delete them. Done. Right? Now you can see that my length of my cycle went back to being the original one. And now I can, with this controller only selected, I can press key and then paste the animation into that. And so now you can see that my controller, my root controller or master controller, is in linear just as before, but the character still stays in stat mode. And we maintain that cycle as well, working seamlessly. On top of this, you can do much more, but we're gonna see that in a further video. But the reason I'm showing you this is because I've been using these things in a side project and it's proven really powerful. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions, any other ideas for other videos. If you find another use for these new tips. If you use the NLA, please let me know, because I know I maybe 2 or 3 people that actually do, but it's getting a lot of love lately, and we're gonna try to make that more visible and show you why is it much better than it was a year ago, even 6 months ago. So yeah, remember to like and subscribe, and see me next time.